Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. Today is Wednesday, August 27th, 2025, 10 a.m. Central. I'm on time in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Today we're going to be talking about first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons in regard to magic resistance. It's kind of across the board in this one, so we're going to be looking at a number of books. What is the, those are the big 9, right? Those are the ones I use. The setting books are not something I throw into the mix for me, because I have a homebrew setting that I use, and I really don't use much in the way of adventures or modules either. Welcome, Vince. Vince is in the chat. Appreciate you stopping by, buddy. Hope all the doggos are doing well. Vince does a little doggy daycare and doing his part to keep our four-legged friends happy, which is a noble calling. These 9 books. So, started with original Dungeons and Dragons. Added in the first edition books as they were released, which for the core books means Monster Manual first, right? In 77, 78, the Player's Handbook, 79, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then Who Can't Use More Monsters? Fiend Folio came out. Some of that stuff didn't quite fit my idea at the time of what medieval fantasy gaming was. I was a little more less gonzo than I could have been, I suppose. I use more of it now than I used back in the early days. Deities and Demigods, interesting. A good read. It kind of helped me adjust my own pantheon, which I had connected to my own setting. So I wasn't looking to take a whole, take all the Norse gods and import them into. But there were ideas as far as different regions of my own setting needed their own versions of. And since a lot of what happens in the real world is one culture importing the pantheon of another culture and maybe making some adjustments to them to fit their own world beliefs, and it helped to see some of that stuff and to see it set up in a way that it fit with D&D from real world cultures in D&Ds and Demigods. And, a lot of people talk about it as the the Out of Reach Monsters book, right? All of these pantheons are expressed as if they could be, fought or contended with or stand up to them toe-to-toe. And I'll tell you what, some campaigns, some Monty Hall campaigns, as Jim Ward used to say, were definitely the kinds of people that would flip through the deities and demigods and put their character group up against this one or that one. Hey, let's all fight Thor. Okay, I get it. You want to fight a big monster, and they've put stats on Thor, and they're incredibly high stats, and he's got big magic items, and it's going to be a tough slog, so go for it. And you know what? People have fun doing stuff like that, and who's to say it's wrong? Not me, that's for sure, but it wasn't something... I expressed some skepticism as to how much fun someone could have doing something like that when I suppose exploration was the main focus for me in Dungeons and Dragons. And then Monster Manual 2 came out, more monsters. And these, I guess, were developed some from Dragon Magazine, some from various published adventures, and others that came from people's minds as part of various individuals' homebrew settings, and some were ones that had slipped through the cracks that probably could have been around as early as the original Monster Manual, but didn't. We'll get into that one of these days. We'll talk about each of these books and what they mean to me. There's a good series. Unearthed Arcana, as I've said before, I use it sparingly. I don't use a lot of the rules. I don't use the classes. The spells, in my opinion, are mostly ready-made for prime time. The ideas in my campaigns are that if wizards magic users want to take time creating a new spell, they can do so, and they can come up with it whole cloth. But if they see something in Unearthed Arcana and it suits what they're thinking, or it's something they want to import into our game and setting, they can create it through a magic user, their own, or one that's hired, to research it and create it. And then, because it's already outlined, as long as they want it straight out of the book, I'll say, yeah, this'll be fine. It's good enough. Or I might suggest that we adjust it this way or that way a little bit. And then, of course, these survival guides. They're just good reading. I think every DM should get those and read them through and keep them in the back of their mind as reference for helping them adjudicate things that aren't covered in the earlier rules, specific things. And, you get a good idea how to run a weather system from these books. You get an idea of a better idea of how to handle wandering monsters and different things like that. And just basic survival techniques. How long can you go without water or air or food or whatever? What if you're in an unfriendly, inhospitable environment, for various reasons? What is acid doing? And, let's get into a little more detail on everything. So I'm not saying you should open it up at the table every time something like this comes up, but read through them. Get them into your head as something, because they will help you form ideas for processes, ways of adjudicating things in your game. Boy, I'm plowing through the time here, and I'm not even getting to magic resistance yet. So let's start in on it. Where you're looking for magic resistance is in 4 books mainly, right? Monster Manual, Fiend Folio, Monster Manual 2, and deities and demigods. Now, I've got them a little bit out of order here, and maybe I shouldn't. But you know what? Let's look at them first. Let's look at the Monster Manual first. It says, and I'll take these as written, and then we'll discuss some differences between them as they were written from book to book, and also my own personal interpretation of some of the finer points of them. Magic resistance indicates the percentage chance of any spell absolutely failing in the monster's presence. It is based on the spell being cast by the magic user of 11th level and must be adjusted upwards by 5% for each level below 11th level, or downward for each level above 11th level of the magic user casting the spell. Thus, a magic resistance of 95% means that a 10th level magic user has no possibility of affecting the monster with a spell. Well, a 12th level magic user has a 10% chance. Even if a spell does take effect on a magic resistant creature, the creature is entitled to normal saving throws. Note also that the magic resistance of a creature has an effect on certain existing spells, such as Hold Portal, where it indicates the probability of the magic resistance shattering the existing spell. Interesting there, huh? So, in their presence was the phrase, right? Looks like we've got a little spammerooski in the thing. So we will take care of that. First time chatter. My bad, I got to do a little monitoring here. We'll block this guy. There we go. Hate it when that happens. But you got to deal with it when you do with it. Otherwise, they will send others following. Anyway, this magic resistance section from the monster manual is the basis for all of them, right? I mean, they all read similarly. Let's check out the one in the Fiend Folio and move right on with that. And pardon me, these are screenshots right out of books and or off PDFs, so they're not going to be super clean. But magic resistance indicates the percentage chance of a spell absolutely failing if it is cast at or on the monster in question. Remember, the first one said in the presence of. The basis of the figure is a spell cast by a magic user of 11th level of experience. The figure must be adjusted upward by 5% for each level above 11th, or downward by 5% for each experience level above 11th of the spellcaster. Thus, the monster with 95% magic resistance cannot be affected by a spell cast by a magic user of the 10th experience level or lower, while a 12th level magic user has a 10% chance. All of that section is the same. Note that even if a spell does overcome the magic resistance of a monster, the monster is still entitled to normal saving throw. So that's the same. But notice that wording at the top. Absolutely failing if it is cast at or on the monster in question. And the first one said failing in the monster's presence. So that is a difference there, because in their presence, does that mean line of sight? Does that mean they have to be in the area of effect, say, of a fireball, so the spell can't be cast at all? Or does it just not affect them? At or on. What if it's at somebody next to the monster? Well, that's interesting too. So this was the Fiend Folio. It's actually not the it is the second book. Deities and Demigods is next. But you know what? I've got the Monster Manual 2 one queued up here next, so let's have a look at that. Magic resistance is the chance of a spell, is the chance a spell might fail when cast on the monster. A little different. This chance is expressed in a percentage. Basic for the percentage chance of a spell cast by a magic user at 11th level experience. If the player character spellcasters are not of 11th level, the figure must be adjusted upwards by 5% for each level below 11th level, or downwards by 5% for each level above 11th level. Thus, a monster with 95% magic resistance cannot be affected by a spell cast by a magic user of 10th level of experience or lower, while 12th level magic user has a 10% chance. A lot more text here to come, but the next section is similar. Note that even if a spell does overcome the magic resistance of a monster, the monster is still entitled to normal saving throws. But then it goes on. A creature's magic resistance extends only to its immediate possessions. Anything carried or worn, for example. Area effect spells will still function if targeted on the magic-resistant creature within their area. The creature itself might not be affected, although all others in the spell area will be subject to the spell's effect. Spell effects. A fireball, for example, may wipe out a cluster of orcs, while an Agathon standing in the midst might be totally unaffected. The percent of magic resistance of a creature has an effect on certain existing spells, such as Hold Portal, where it indicates that the probability of shattering the existing spell. Sorry, I didn't have that up on the screen, but there it is. The sorry, I have one more little thing to take care of over here. There we go. Okay. And now that you've had a chance to see that, let's just say they get a little more specific. And you can target the creature. So even if they're not affected, if it's an area effect spell, everything around them can be targeted. But let's continue, and I put these a little bit out of order. The deity and demigod section on magic resistance says magic resistance. This indicates the percent chance of a spell absolutely failing to affect the magic resistant creature. Failing to affect. Not about at or on, right? Not about in or around. Not about targeted or not. Just them themselves are not going to be affected. It is based on the spell being cast by a spellcaster of 11th level, and it must be adjusted upward by 5% for each level below 11th, or downward by 5% for each level above 11th level of the spellcaster casting the spell. Thus, a magic resistance of 95% means that a 10th level spellcaster has no chance of affecting the creature with a spell or spell-like effect, or spell-like effect. That's a little added, isn't it? Well, a 12th level spellcaster has a 10% chance. Even if a spell does affect a magic resistant creature, the creature is entitled to normal saving throws, if applicable. Caveat, but I think that was always understood. A creature's magic resistance extends only to its immediate possessions. For example, anything carried or worn. Area effect spells will still function if targeted with a magic resistant creature within their area. The creature itself might not be affected, though all others in the spell area will be subject to the spell effects. For example, a fireball may wipe out a cluster of orcs, and a devil standing in their midst might be totally unaffected due to its magic resistance. The magic resistance of a creature has an effect on certain existing spells, such as Hold Portal, where it indicates the probability of magic resistance shattering the existing spell. Special note, it says here, because this is about deities, certain deities have special abilities of magical origin that never fail. A weapon that never misses, for example, or an ability against which there is no save. Creatures with magic resistance may still avoid the effects of these abilities if they make a successful magic resistance roll. To determine the level of the deity with the magic ability, use the deity's highest level character class available, unless it is 15th level for demigods, 20th level for lesser gods, 25th level for greater gods, in which case the aforementioned levels should be used. Okay, so that's interesting. That takes an additional look from deities and demigods, which actually came out before Monster Manual 2. Nevertheless, we're not talking about this or that superseding one or another there. We are saying that the main addition is the spell-like effects that's been added in. I think that's the important thing. So spell-like effects can come from equipment, right? They can come from artifacts. They can be innate spell-like effects. The Irianes that I ran in our last adventure, Devil with 30% magic resistance, also had a number of effects. They could produce fire. They could turn invisible. They could shape change, or rather polymorph self And those things might be resisted by somebody else that had resistance. So, for example, if there was someone else with a percentage chance of resisting, much like with the hold portal, somebody's invisibility might fail against the magic resistance of a certain creature. And since, as they say in all of these, that it would shatter a hold portal, one would have to say that it's not just the person with the magic resistance that can then see them, but it, in effect, shatters the invisibility so that anyone can then see them. The spell utterly fails because it bounces up against that magic resistance. But how close do they have to be? We never really get that from any of these, so you have to play it by ear. If somebody is a mile away on a plain and in an open plain, the grassy grasslands, and you can see the other person and they turn invisible and you have magic resistance and you roll 30% or less, let's say you have 30% magic resistance, and can they then see you because the invisibility fails because they're within a line of sight? Because they can see you, are you in their area? How close do you need to be for that to work? It doesn't really say. So that's one of those judgment calls for DMs to deal with. What I would say is circumstantial. I would think that you could fairly make a judgment that anything that they're able to do, any effect that they can have on things, or any range that they can affect, puts you in their sphere. So if you're out on an open grassland and turn invisible, and they have a missile weapon that can go 240 feet yards, let's say, out of doors, right? Let's say they have a longbow, and you're within their range. I think it would be fair to say that they can shatter your invisibility with their magic resistance because you're within their sphere of control, let's say. Once you're beyond that, I don't think it matters. I mean, they can move closer, and once they get within get you within their sphere of control, I would say at that point the magic resistance could come into effect. Before that, probably not. So I would use that. I would use that because it doesn't say exactly how far that should work. I think all of the other things are pretty close to self-explanatory. It was good that they eventually added in, and it extends only to immediate possessions. So, if I've left my wand of fireballs on a table nearby, is it immediate? I would say no. I think it's got to be on your person. It doesn't have to be in your hand, but it has to be on your person. If you were to, for example, gate out or teleport out of an area, the wand of fireballs that's on the table nearby, that isn't going with you. So I would say that is not an immediate possession. That's how I'd rule it. Area effects would still function if targeted a magic-resistant creature within the area. Yeah, you know what? If a fireball blast includes you in its area and you manage to make your magic resistance roll, then indeed it doesn't affect you, but it can still affect everyone else. Of course, they all get saving throws. So that is talking about that. And special abilities. Yeah, I think they probably messed up by saying something never fails when obviously they want to write in this section that something might not affect somebody, because I'm not sure that semantically, what is that, a difference, a distinction without a difference? Is that the phrase? Um, it's a tough edit. I don't know that there's a good answer to that except to never say never fail. Never say never, and just say certain special abilities can only where are we at over here? Certain special abilities of a magical origin that never fail. A weapon that never misses, an ability against which there is no save. Creature with magic resistance may still avoid the effects of these abilities. So I think we don't use never in the first place, and we just ignore that as a bad edit. Let's call it that. So that takes care of that. I don't think we've got any other little things that weren't covered by further magic resistance sections further down the line. It started off as a pretty slim section, and then it added little extra bits, and then it added even more. Actually there, and then back to here, it kind of scaled some stuff back. It didn't mention the D&D stuff, but that's okay. It's already canon at that point, right? All right, look, we're way over time here. So we're going to have to say that, we looked at all the covers and all the things, and now we're back to this. Yeah. So we've been looking at first edition AD&D, various book sections on magic resistance. Hey, I want to remind everybody, next Tuesday, September 2nd, is Ernie Gygax Day. I'm not looking to argue with people about what anybody thought of him or what he might have errantly said here or there. The man was not a malicious person. And if he misspoke on certain occasions, I think we can all agree that he meant no harm, even if he might have done some harm just with institutionalized ways of thinking that he never completely shook off as he got older. I think it's probably true that if we dig deep enough, we all have some of that. Myself, certainly, 60 some odd years old, and I'm sure even younger people who were immersed in certain ways of thinking might have some things that they could correct. But the important thing is that he was one of the earliest playtesters of what became the first published set of Dungeons and Dragons rules, and without a doubt helped shape it, and was a gamer his whole life, and was a guy who ran his mega dungeon for nearly 50 years, mostly using first edition rules. God love him. And you know what? If he made some missteps, I think those can be forgiven, and we can recognize his huge contributions to our hobby and move on from there. So, September 2nd, Ernie Gygax Day. This weekend or on Tuesday, do some gaming. Get some people involved. Roll up a character. Work on your setting. Paint some miniatures if that's all you have time or can organize. But do that and think about Ernie, and think about the good things he did. And think about what a friendly, good-natured, inviting individual he was. And we'll all do that together. And we'll do that every year. Ernie Gygax Day. So, this was discussion of the first edition AD&D Magic Resistance rules here on the OK Grognard Show. Hey, don't forget, the show streams live on Twitch each Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central. Then it's archived on YouTube. Like, subscribe, follow, do all that fun stuff. It's very important, and it helps the channel out. And speaking of supporting the channel, you can do so even at the free level on Patreon. And join such illustrious Patreon supporters as Tom Tullis of Fat Dragon Games, Carlos Lysing of Castle Entertainment, Heath Farndon of the AD&D 20, Dave O'Brien, unauthorized user, Death Angel Shadow, Heidi and Eric Gygax Garland of Gaxland, Vince Ragusa of the Maroon Room, a fantastic prog rock band and a champion of the chat, Daniel Caldwell of Griffin and Gargoyle, Christian Garcia, Stephanie Lesniewski-Gruchow, Cera Toppilopkus, Colin Szablewski, and as always, Shane Bradley, DM Extraordinaire. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.